Some one roof data for a June report. New Zealand's average property value has climbed only 2.7% since the end of the slump in June 2023. Now it's June 2025, so 2.7%.
2 years.
In 2 years, okay?
So
And
negative real.
unpack that. What do you mean by negative real?
Or minus inflation over that 2 year period as well, which is probably...
Yeah, probably slightly higher or in line with that. Yeah, well, no, it would be way higher than that. Wouldn't it? It's probably
so
double
we're
that.
talking about like 5 to 10% losses in real...
So you're saying, okay, so the property, if we go right...
I mean, we live in a nominal world though, right?
Yeah.
So like...
But what you're saying is then your costs are going up with everything, so then you're asking for more wages, so then realistically you're then earning more, and then your property, it's not really keeping up with inflation.
Yeah,
So then,
exactly. So
yeah.
it's not being an inflation hedge.
Yeah, so say you put your money into the S&P 500 in that time for those 2 years, your property has effectively become even cheaper as well. Because
Wow, that would be a big difference because a
that's
couple of
gone up
those years have been real good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's not what everybody does. Okay. But just some further context here. So below...
Priced in Bitcoin. Holy shit.
It's since the... Okay, so I'll start again. Value has climbed only 2.7% since the end of the slump in June 2023 and is 11.7% below its post-COVID high of 1.098 million recorded in... Isn't it crazy the average New Zealand house price is $1 million in 2022, February 2022? Estimated return to peak, June 2027. Do you know how much One Roof probably hated releasing this article? It's June 2025. And they're saying, well, it's not going to get back to that peak until June 2027.
Wait.
That's New
how
Zealand.
Far did it say it's 11% away?
Yeah,
Phenomenal.
11.7% below its post-COVID high. So then they're saying that it's got to then increase by...
Like 15.
Yeah, over the next 2 years, like a 7 compounded again
16.
maybe. Auckland's average property value dipped below its June 2023 trough of 1.278 million in September last year. Since then, it clawed its way back to 1.3 million, but has eased in recent weeks and is still 17.7% below its record high of 1.79 million recorded in January 2022. Estimated return to peak, December 2028.
Yeah, that's more realistic. I thought they said mid-27.
That's for the New Zealand average, but this is Auckland. So December 2028, they're saying they don't see property getting back to that peak until December 2020.
I was going to say, if you were like mid-2027 in terms of reaching the COVID peak again, that means we would need a couple of years of 7 in a row. That ain't happening.
Well, Christchurch's average value dropped to a post-peak low of 739,000 in May 2023. In the last 2 years since it has grown almost 8% to 798,000, minus 0.5% below its high of 802,000 recorded in June 2022. So Christchurch seems to be there or thereabouts. A June estimated return to peak July 2025.
Christchurch is interesting, because I am down there a fair bit, but I'm not there all the time. But what I feel like is it feels more, it feels healthier economically there than it does in Auckland. So you can see you feel that on the ground, what they're talking about in that data there in terms of the house prices. Like, it's been more robust. The people I know there and other businesses seem to be pretty solid. And then when you go down to like the Riverside area that's all been redeveloped and it's nice restaurants and bars and stuff like that, whenever I'm there, it always feels like buoyant and bubbly and nice, and people are in like a pretty good mood. You drive around and there is still money coming from the government tap, right? Like, any time since the earthquake, you haven't really been able to overcapitalize in Canterbury or Christchurch because they just like keep building more stuff. Like, the main one everyone knows is that big stadium. It's still going. And if you drive past it, it is a behemoth. It's a beast. There's a lot of people on site there and they're doing a lot of stuff. And it was just like what we talked about earlier that no one would have heard yet on the pod about, like the Hawke's Bay have the floods and then people have to come in and fix all the stuff. And those tradies and construction workers and people selling the ranges to the construction workers and the lunch bars selling the pies to the boys and like all of this stuff, it just flows all down and it makes everything feel better, eh?
Well, Wellington, which has been hit tough, Wellington City's average property value hit a trough of 970,000 in June 2023 and then climbed briefly above 1 million before dropping again. It hit a new post-COVID low of 956,000 at the end of May and is 28.6% off its peak of 1.338 million recorded in March 2022. So Wellington's
bleeding.
That's a crash. Like that's
It's a crash, yeah.
what people would just call or term a crash, right? Estimated return to peak, July 2031.
Yeah.
So if you brought at the top of the market and you're listening to this, like firstly, I have some sympathy or empathy for you. We may have warned you to be very careful with the FOMO, and even the Reserve Bank, Sir Adrian Orr, the best engineer in the country, even warned people, don't go and do it. But here we are. But you're not going to get back to your peak till 2031. I think this could all be wrong, right? But I did see
It
someone
will be
yesterday.
wrong, 100%.